I now give the floor to the representative of the Syrian Arab Republic.
شكرا السيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, I would like to express my sincere condolences to my friend and colleague, the Ambassador of the Russian Federation, for the loss of lives. The martyrs of yesterday as a result of the Israeli aggression against the city of Latakia. The martyrs of Russia in Syria are the martyrs of Syria. Same blood, same enemy, and same victory against the same kind of terrorism. We, along with our allies, are committed to the counterterrorism strategy in Syria, the region, and the world, in deeds and in words. Mr. President, we condemn the new Israeli aggression launched by Israel last night against my country. This is part of Israel's aggressive policy and its desperate attempt to provide moral support to terrorist groups following the defeats at the hand of the Syrian army. And after the Syrian army was able to purge Syrian territories from these terrorists. This is also part of the Israeli continued and provocative aggressions and violations of the disengagement agreement of 1974 and Security Council resolutions, especially Resolution 350 of 1974. My country calls once again on the Security Council to assume its responsibility in maintaining international peace and security and take the necessary and decisive measures immediately to hold Israel accountable for its terrorism and for its crimes that constitute a flagrant violation of the Charter of the United Nations and the norms of international law. I noted with regret, but I was not surprised to note that there was no mention of two elements in the briefings by the Undersecretary General and the Special Envoy. They both provided a briefing on Syria, on the humanitarian and the political situation. However, neither of them mentioned the subversive Israeli role in Syria. They did not mention the terrorist groups operating in my country. Even though my dear friend de Mistura knows full well that we agreed in Geneva on 4 baskets. We agreed on the agenda in Geneva, including terrorism, counter-terrorism. Therefore, it is unacceptable that Mr. Lowcock and Mr. de Mistura do not mention counter-terrorism, whether external or internal. As you know, Israel attacked my country, Syria, twice this week. However, it seems that some members of the Council were not aware of that. Mr. President, some permanent members of the Council continue to disregard the information we have been providing to you over 7.5 years. 7.5 years. They continue to distort the facts. This is unprecedented. I will not do what they are doing. I will not fabricate stories. I will not make arbitrary accusations, and I will not use illegal terms and concepts. I will use their words against them. I would like to remind the representative of France of a statement made by Mr. Roland Dumas, the former foreign minister of France, a statement made for the French channel LCP in June 2013, and I quote, "Towards the end of 2010, I was on a mission to the UK, 2 years before the aggression on Syria, and I met with British officials, including some of my friends. And they informed me that there was something being prepared for Syria. That was in 2010. It was before the Arab Spring, before the Asian summer. They told me that the UK, alongside other partners, was preparing to invade Syria through a number of insurgent groups. This operation in Syria was prepared and was planned for a long time ago, with a clear objective in mind, namely to isolate the Syrian government." Dumas also says, everything that is happening in the region has to do with animosity towards Israel. That's what the Prime Minister of Israel said. He said to me, "We are trying to live side by side with the neighboring countries of the region, but any state that refuses that will be targeted." End of quote.
C'était la France de François Mitterrand.
But that was another France, the France of François Mitterrand, Dominique de Villepin. It was the France of Jean-Pierre Chevènement. It was the France of Roland Dumas.
هذه شهادة أولى.
This is one testimony, and I give you another one as important. A statement by Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, the former Chief of Staff to the U.S. Secretary of State, Colin Powell. He said in a statement to the Real News Network on September 11, 2018, a couple of days ago, and I quote, "Those who are calling for an aggression against Syria are looking for any kind of excuse to justify such an aggression. Syria will be their next target after Iraq. Their ultimate goal after Syria would be to topple the Iranian government." The colonel goes on to say, "My country, along with the UK and France, do not have any evidence that the Syrian government did use chemical weapons at any moment in the past. However, the US intelligence officers, including those working illegally in Syria, were not able to provide any evidence to substantiate their allegations. To the contrary, all evidence available point to the fact that terrorist groups were those that used chemical weapons and launched these chemical attacks." End of quote. This is another testimony.
Different America. It was Colin Powell. It was the General Wilkerson. إن هذه الحكومات أرادت هذه الحرب على بلاد سوريا.
These governments sought to launch a war against Syria to force the Syrian government to change its positions and its policies and to change its national identity in service of a new Middle East. According to this plan, new and warring countries would be established on religious, confessional, and sectarian basis, just like the Jewish Israel, in order to deprive the Palestinian people of creating their own independent state. It's all about Israel, after all. Mr. President, in order to preserve the lives of Syrians, all parties must cooperate with the Syrian government to counter terrorism, instead of allowing foreign intelligence officers to support these terrorist groups by coming up with deceptive terms, including, for example, moderate armed Syrian opposition, or non-state armed groups, or the Islamic Caliphate State, or jihadist groups. All these terms do not use the word terrorist, as if there is no terrorism in Syria. There is only moderate armed Syrian opposition, genetically modified. We have people from Uzbekistan, China, Kuwait, Egyptians, people from Europe, but all of them are only modified, genetically modified, armed Syrian opposition. Let us read together a statement by the French Foreign Minister, Jean-Yves Le Drian, last week to the channel BFM TV, and I quote, "The operation by the Syrian army against Idlib might have direct implications for the security of Europe." This was also confirmed by the representative of France just now. He continues, This might be the result of terrorists spreading across the region and moving to Europe. This security threat will remain as long as there are terrorists from Al-Qaeda operating in this region. Tens of thousands of them. They might be a direct threat to the security of our region. End of quote. And I ask the representative of France, why has the French government continued to provide a political cover to the terrorist groups in Syria, even though these groups were the same who launched the attack against the Bataclan theater in Paris and in Nice? I will give you another example. And this example might be of interest for the representative of Netherlands. A few days ago, we provided you with serious information through Dutch media. According to this information, the Dutch government has provided support, funding, and logistical assistance to a number of terrorist groups in Syria, even though the Dutch general prosecutor has designated these groups as terrorist groups affiliated with jihadist and Salafist groups. It seems that there is a disagreement between the government and the general prosecutor in the Netherlands. And I ask the representative of the Netherlands, doesn't this action by the Dutch government constitute a violation of its responsibilities as a member of the Security Council, especially when it comes to maintaining international peace and security? Mr. President, to those who continue to boast about interfering in my country, I tell them that we will continue to work seriously to achieve a political solution through a Syrian-led dialogue without any foreign interference. Our priority throughout the political process will remain counter-terrorism, while ensuring the return of Syrian refugees and IDPs and launching the recovery and reconstruction process, while liberating all Syrian territories from terrorists and from any illegal occupying power. I would like to remind Mr. Lowcock when he said that he would need the approval of the Syrian government to deliver humanitarian assistance to the Rukban camp. I would like to remind him, and this seems to be a very strange comment, why didn't you say that the U.S. occupying power in the Tanf camp were the ones who rejected or refused to allow humanitarian access to Rukban and asked that all humanitarian assistance be delivered 10 kilometers away from the camp? Why didn't you say that? Regarding the Constitutional Committee, the Syrian government has fulfilled its commitments in this regard. As Mr. de Mistura said, we have provided a list of participants in this committee. And the Syrian government would like to thank Russia and Iran for the efforts of the two presidents during the last summit in Tehran. The Syrian government welcomes the agreement reached regarding the governorate of Idlib, which was announced yesterday in the Russian city of Sochi. We stress that this agreement was the result of intensive consultations between the Syrian Arab Republic and the Russian Federation, with full coordination between the two countries. The Syrian government is not the last to be consulted. No one can sidestep the Syrian government in this matter. The Syrian Arab Republic continues to welcome any initiative to stem the bloodshed and to restore stability and security in all areas affected by terrorism. We will continue our war against terrorism until liberating all Syrian territories, whether through military action or through local reconciliation agreements. These agreements have proven to be successful in stopping the bloodshed and restoring stability and security in the areas concerned, which has allowed for the return of refugees to their homes. Mr. President, the agreement announced yesterday is a time-bound agreement with clear deadlines. This is in response to what the representative of the UK just said. The Idlib agreement announced yesterday is a time-bound agreement with clear deadlines. It is part of all previous agreements on the de-escalation zones, which was the result of the Astana process since 2017. The Astana process has always committed itself to respecting the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and unity of the Syrian Arab Republic while liberating all Syrian territories from terrorism, terrorists, and any illegal foreign military presence. In closing, Mr. President, I would like to respond to what the permanent representative of the UK said today. She asked the Syrian representative, that's what I heard through translation or through interpretation. She asked the Syrian representative about the actions the Syrian regime is taking to ensure the delivery of humanitarian assistance. What kind of question is that? I don't see a representative of the Syrian regime in the United Nations or the Security Council. I am the representative of the Syrian Arab Republic, and I would like the representative of the UK not to address this question to this fake person. I don't know where he is. I called him Godot the last time I spoke. At the United Nations, there is nothing called the Syrian regime. There is a representative of the Syrian Arab Republic. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Syria for his statement.